If you are someone who is currently procrastinating on a task that you either have to do or you really want to do, but you just can't seem to get yourself into it, then today's video is for you because it's surprise, surprise. The same thing happens to me all the time. And it just so happens that there is a project that has been living sitting right over here that I've wanted to do for a long time. And even though it's important, it's not urgent. So it's just been rolling on my to do list for, well, I'm actually embarrassed to tell you how long. So to inspire myself to actually get my butt started on this thing, I thought I would create a video about it and talk about how to actually get yourself to do things that you know you want to do, but you just can't get yourself to actually start doing the thing. And before we get into it, welcome if you're new. My name is Karen McGill. I'm an ADHD coach and creator, and I'm here for the busy, ambitious brains who actually want to do things but have a hard time getting started. So let's get started. Okay, here is the project in question. It is an application for an Irish passport, and I originally started this project. Now I'm going to be embarrassed to tell you this in May of 2020. So that's 4 years ago now. And what happened was that obviously we know what happened in 2020. And all of a sudden, my craving to travel went from like a 2 to a 17. Because as soon as I can't do something, of course, I want to do it. So I got really inspired to apply for this passport because not only would it give me access to live and work in Ireland, but it would give me access to the rest of the EU. I do have a British passport, but Britain's no longer part of the EU. So that was the motivation in 2020 to get started on this. And I'll be honest, this was part of a bigger hyper focus that I had around moving to Portugal. That was like the thing I wanted to do in the first half of 2020, even before the pandemic, was to retire and move to Portugal and just live our best lives on the coast. So as a result, I needed to get this application fixed. The funny thing about that, I know some of you will totally resonate with this. That was the beginning of 2020. But as 2020 went on and into 2021, my hyper focus shifted from moving to Europe to buying an RV. And then all of a sudden, all I could do was watch YouTube videos about people in RVs and RV life and van life and all of those things. So my fixation on Europe took a backseat to RVing, and ergo, this thing started to collect dust. And here we are in 2024, and I have yet to finish this project. But my husband and I have been talking about how we would love to do some slow travel through Europe. And he's been bugging me to apply for my Irish passport, which I don't think we need a passport to do the kind of travel that we want to do, but it would make it a lot easier, especially if we decided we wanted to stay in Europe longer term. Again, these are just batting ideas around, but now it's something I said I would do. And I put it on my to-do list and I just keep moving it from day to day to day. So I thought it'd be a fun idea to walk through this process with you, especially if you're someone who struggled with the same attention issues that I do. And maybe we can get some projects done and learn a few things along the way. So let's get into it. Now, when I am working with clients on this issue and they come to me saying, I need to get things done, but I just can't get it started. The number one thing I ask them, which is so important, is do you really want to do it? Because very often we assume we need to do things or that we should do them, but we really don't want to. And when you are a person who struggles with low dopamine, as someone with ADHD generally does, and you don't want to do something, it is really hard to generate enough dopamine to get started on the thing. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that we need to actually start something, follow through, and feel really good that we got it done. And if you want to learn more about that process, I will link a video up here where I go into it in detail. But to answer my own question, yes, this is something I really want to do. I don't want to go through the process of filling out the application, but I do want to have the passport. And my desire to have the passport exceeds how much I don't want to actually go through this process of applying for it because I hate paperwork. I have a mental barrier to paperwork, especially when it has to do with government paperwork where there's lots of little steps and everything has to be perfect or they will send it all back to you to start over again. So that is the mental block I've had around this. But I also recognize that having the passport is going to be well worth it. And now that I've clarified that, you might be wondering, well, why have I been procrastinating on it? And I'll tell you why. I put on my to-do list every day, apply for Irish passport. And the problem with that is that applying for a passport is a project. It's not a task. So when my brain sees on my list, apply for Irish passport, it can't even comprehend where to start with that, much less generate enough dopamine to actually do it. So it will come up with very creative reasons for why I can't do it in the moment. And then it gets pushed to the next day and the next day and the next day until I can come up with some sort of trigger to actually get started on it. And because this is important, but not urgent, so there's no deadline on it, I have to come up with my own structure and reason to actually get started on it. So that's why I decided to do this video around it. It's actually accountability for me, and hopefully I can inspire you to get started on something that you've been procrastinating on as well. So now that I've recognized that this is a project and not a task, and I've created the structure and reason to actually get started, rather than creating the expectation that I'm just going to sit down and get this all done in one sitting, I'm just going to promise myself to figure out what the steps are and try to get the first couple of steps done so that number one, I've created some momentum on the project. And number two, I've created some level of clarity on what the next steps will be. So what I'm going to do first is scrap the application I started in 2020, because for all I know, it can be a completely different process right now. I'm going to go to the Irish Passport website and I'm going to find out what the steps are that I need to complete in order to get the project done. And like I said, try and knock out one or two of them. But more importantly, leave myself breadcrumbs so that when I come back to the project, I know what needs to be done next. So let's get into it. Well, it's a good thing I decided to go online and see what the application process is now because I can do the whole thing online, which is going to make this process so much easier. So I went to the Irish Passport website and I got a list of all of the things that I'm going to need, like a witness and photographs and my birth certificate, all of the various different bits and bobs that I need in order to prove that I qualify for a passport. So now that I have all of that, there's two things I'm going to do now. The first one is to actually start the online application process. I should probably gather all the documentation first, but that sounds really boring to my brain. The application sounds like it'll probably be a lot more fun. So I'm going to do that first. And then I'm going to take the list of things I need to collect for the passport and I'm going to put it into my to-do list as individual tasks so that my brain doesn't feel overwhelmed when I see it. All right. I got as far as I could go on the application. I'm feeling pretty clear about what needs to happen next. So now I'm going to put all the things I need to collect for the passport into my to-do list as individual tasks. And then I'm going to give myself permission to step away from the project because I have my breadcrumbs set out, right? Like breadcrumbs are the things you need to do next when you come back to the project so that you're not like, I don't remember what I was doing or what needs to happen next. Having breadcrumbs is really important. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then I'll see how I feel. Okay, I've got my breadcrumbs all laid out on my to-do list, and I even found a few of the documents that I need to include with my application. So the next things I need to do are get my pictures taken for the application and then find a witness to notarize the application. And at that point, I should be ready to send everything off. So I'm starting to feel like this project could be done by the end of the week, which would be amazing. So anyways, that is just an example of how I would tackle a project that I've been procrastinating on for a very long time. And just to review all those steps, number one, I ask myself, is this something I really want to do? Is the outcome of this desirable enough that I'm willing to put up with the suck that I'm going to have to go through in order to get it done? Number two, I took what was actually a project and ideally I would have broke down all the tasks right away, but I didn't even know what they were. But I knew what the first step was, and that was to go to the website and find out all the requirements and the process for getting it done. Number three, I created my own sense of urgency, structure, and accountability to actually get started on doing what it is that I knew I needed to do next. Number four, I gave myself a certain amount of time to focus on the project right now. And then I gave myself permission to put it away for the time being. Because in my brain, if I feel like I need to get something done in one sitting, then I'm going to look for a day where I have nothing else to do. And of course, that day is never going to happen, right? So I gave myself time to work on it now. And then I outlined the breadcrumbs of where I need to pick up when I come back to the project. And finally, I gave myself a minute to celebrate the win that I actually got this damn project started. And it looks like it might actually be completed by the end of the week. And I cannot begin to tell you how good it feels to offload it. And in the process, I even got the opportunity to create a new video, which may or may not actually be interesting, useful. I guess that remains to be seen. And of course, most importantly, I reinforced that identity of being somebody who can start things and actually get them finished rather than someone who says, I always start things and never finish them, right? So I hope that was in some way helpful for all of you who also struggle to get started on things and actually complete them. I wish you the best of luck. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.